All right, so welcome to the deep dive. We're going to be doing something kind of different today. We're tackling this age-old question, village life versus city life. But the catch is, our source material is a YouTube video. It's called "Learn English with Podcast Conversation," Episode One, English Podcast for Beginners. I thought it was really fascinating. This video uses the village versus city debate to actually teach English. So let's dive in and see what kind of unexpected insights we can uncover. For those who haven't seen the video, it features a conversation discussing the pros and cons of each lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's interesting how such a simple video can actually open up a much broader discussion. It's not just about choosing a place to live, it's about understanding the factors that shape our preferences
Mhm.
and how different environments can actually cater to different needs.
Yeah, you're right. It's about more than just picking Team Village or Team City, right? The video highlights the classic arguments for each. Village life is presented as peaceful, close to nature, filled with friendly people, and strong community bonds. But it also acknowledges some potential drawbacks like limited job opportunities, maybe a slower pace of life. How do you think these arguments reflect the reality of village life, especially in, a globalized world?
Well, the video definitely simplifies things to make it more accessible for, English learners.
Yeah.
But those core ideas about village life do resonate with certain values that a lot of people find very appealing. There's a growing movement towards sustainable living and a desire to reconnect with nature, which can be harder to do. In a bustling city,
Yeah, and on the flip side, the video portrays city life as kind of this hub of opportunity, packed with diverse cultures and constant stimulation. But it also touches on the downsides like pollution, crowds, and that feeling of anonymity that you mentioned earlier. Do you think the video accurately portrays the potential downsides of city living, or do you think it maybe sugarcoats things a bit?
well, I think it depends on the individual's experience and the specific city they're thinking of. Some cities prioritize green spaces and community initiatives, while others struggle with overcrowding and social isolation. And that's where the concept of urban planning comes in. How a city is designed and managed can really significantly impact the quality of life for its residents.
That's a great point. You've got me thinking maybe the ideal scenario isn't about choosing one or the other, but finding a balance. What if we could bring elements of village life into cities or inject some urban energy into rural communities? It's a fascinating thought.
Exactly. This brings up the concept of rural urban linkages, where we acknowledge the interdependence of cities and villages rather than viewing them as separate entities. For instance, many villages rely on nearby cities for economic opportunities and specialized services, while cities depend on rural areas for food production and natural resources.
So it's about finding a way for both to thrive and complement each other. Now, the video also uses relationships as a way to compare village and city living. It suggests that village life fosters closer relationships with neighbors and strong support systems, while cities emphasize independence and self reliance. What do you think? Is this an oversimplification, or do these generalizations hold some truth?
There's some truth to it, though of course it's more nuanced than that. In villages, proximity and shared experiences often lead to close-knit communities, and social support is often very readily available. But that doesn't mean cities are devoid of community. It's just that. Urban communities might manifest in different ways, perhaps through shared interests, online networks, or chosen families.
That makes sense. Cities can be incredibly diverse, so you're more likely to find your tribe based on shared passions rather than just physical proximity. This reminds me of when I first moved to the city and decided to get a pet. I was craving that sense of connection and companionship. But living in a small apartment, I quickly realized that pet ownership in a city comes with some unique challenges like limited space and noise concerns. The video also has a segment about getting a pet. Do you think it effectively illustrates the differences between village and city living in a way that resonates with language learners?
Absolutely. That anecdote about getting a pet cleverly illustrates how seemingly simple choices can play out very differently in various environments. A relatable example that helps language learners connect vocabulary to real life situations,
Mhm.
which is crucial for language acquisition.
It's a subtle way to showcase the impact of environment on everyday decisions. It's more than just, picturesque landscapes or bustling streets. It's about how those environments shape our lives in subtle ways. So the video cleverly establishes the core arguments for village versus city life using relatable examples. What's interesting is how it encourages viewers who are also trying to learn English to weigh the pros and cons. and ultimately form their own opinions.
And it does so without taking sides. The video presents both lifestyles as valid choices, emphasizing that the best option depends on individual priorities and circumstances. This neutral stance is particularly important in language learning materials, as it avoids imposing cultural biases on learners.
It's a reminder that there's no one size fits all answer. When it comes to where we choose to live and how we build our lives, it's about understanding our own needs, considering the trade offs, and finding what truly resonates with us. But there's one part of the video that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, the segment about the relationship breakup. It felt a bit out of place to me. How does that tie into the overall theme of village versus city life?
That's where things get really interesting. While it seems like a sudden shift, I believe it subtly reinforces the themes of community and support that we've been discussing. The video doesn't explicitly state it, but it prompts the listener to consider how such a personal crisis might play out differently in a village versus a city setting.
So it's an implicit challenge to the viewer, prompting them to think critically about the social dynamics of each environment. In a close knit village, news travels fast, and everyone's in each other's business. Support might be readily available, but so is the potential for gossip and judgment. In a city, you might have more privacy, but you also risk feeling isolated during tough times. It's fascinating how the video uses this unexpected scenario to highlight the potential social implications of choosing between village and city life.
It's subtle,
Mm.
but it's there.
Mhm.
And it's a clever way to engage the listener's imagination and encourage them to think beyond the surface level.
It's a brilliant way to weave in those deeper themes without explicitly stating them. So we've seen how this simple video uses the village versus city debate to teach English while subtly prompting viewers.
To consider the various social, economic,
Right.
and personal factors that influence our lifestyle choices.
Mhm.
Stay tuned as we continue to unpack the hidden depths of the seemingly straightforward language learning tool. You know what strikes me? It's how the video doesn't shy away from showing both the good and the bad, the positive and negative aspects of both village and city life. It's not about, saying one is better than the other, but more about giving learners the vocabulary and critical thinking skills to evaluate the options on their own.
Yeah, it's refreshing that it doesn't say, like, this is the right answer. Instead, it empowers learners to, like,
Yeah,
express their own preferences and articulate their reasoning. That's a pretty valuable skill to have no matter what language you speak.
absolutely. It encourages learners to consider their personal values and priorities, which is essential for making good life choices. It also subtly introduces this concept of cultural differences. What might be considered a pro in one culture could be a con in another.
That makes me wonder, like, are our perceptions of village and city life often shaped by, the stereotypes or
Uh,
maybe limited experiences? If we haven't spent significant time in both environments, can we truly understand the nuances and challenges of each?
that's a really great question. It highlights the importance of challenging our assumptions and seeking out diverse perspectives, whether it's through travel, conversations with people from different backgrounds, or even, you know, engaging with media like this video. Exposure to different ways of life can really broaden our understanding and help us break free from those stereotypes.
It's a reminder that learning can come from the most unexpected places I never thought I'd find myself thinking about. Urban planning and cultural relativity, while analyzing a video for English language learners.
That's the beauty of it. Sometimes the simplest tools can unlock the most profound insights. And speaking of tools, the video uses several effective techniques for language acquisition. One that stood out to me was the repetition of key phrases. It felt very natural and conversational, not like a robotic drill.
I agree. It didn't feel forced at all. It was more like, you know, overhearing a conversation between friends, which I'm sure helps learners. Internalize the language in a more organic way.
Exactly. It mimics the way we naturally acquire language in real life settings. By hearing phrases repeated in context, learners begin to grasp the underlying grammar rules and sentence structures without having to,
Hmm.
memorize them explicitly.
It's almost like they're sneaking in the learning while you're busy enjoying the conversation. Now, another technique they used effectively was clear pronunciation and a slower pace of speech.
Yeah, that's crucial for beginners. It allows them to process each word and phrase
Yeah.
without feeling overwhelmed. It also gives them time to, mentally repeat the words and phrases, which helps with memorization and pronunciation practice.
It's as if they're guiding the learner gently, providing the space and time needed to absorb the information at their own pace.
And notice how they strategically pause after introducing new vocabulary, allowing for comprehension and mental rehearsal. This encourages active listening and gives learners a chance to try out the new words and phrases in their minds.
It reminds me of how important active listening is. In any learning environment, it's not enough to just passively hear the words. You have to engage with them, make connections, and try to use them yourself.
You've hit the nail on the head. Active listening is a transferable skill that goes far beyond language learning. It's about being present, curious, and willing to engage with new ideas.
And sometimes, the most powerful learning experiences are those that sneak up on us when we least expect it.
I couldn't agree more. Now, shifting gears a bit, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think the choice between village and city life ultimately comes down to personality? Or are there other factors at play?
That's a tough one. I think personality definitely plays a role. Some people thrive in, fast paced, stimulating environments, while others crave peace, quiet, and a slower pace of life. But there are definitely other factors to consider, like economic opportunities, access to education and healthcare, and family ties.
You're right, it's often a complex interplay of factors. It's not always a simple choice between personal
Mhm.
preference and practicality.
Speaking of practicality, the video does a great job of using clear visuals to illustrate the concepts being discussed. For example, when they talk about the peacefulness of village life, they show images of rolling hills and fields. And when they discuss the excitement of city life, they show like bustling streets and skyscrapers.
Those visuals are particularly helpful for language learners. They provide a concrete reference point for the vocabulary being introduced and make those abstract concepts more tangible.
It's like they're painting a picture with words and images, helping learners to visualize the environments and truly immerse themselves in the conversation.
And it's not just about aesthetics. The visuals also convey practical information about the infrastructure, transportation systems, and housing options available in each setting.
It's like a mini crash course
Mm.
in urban and rural living, all cleverly disguised as a language lesson. And speaking of lessons, one thing that stood out to me was how the video uses humor to keep learners engaged, for instance, when they're talking about the potential downsides of city life. They make a joke about the noise level and the constant sirens.
That touch of humor is so important. It helps to break up the monotony of language learning and makes the whole experience much more enjoyable. Humor can also be a powerful tool for cultural understanding.
It helps to humanize the learning process. It's a reminder that even when we're tackling serious topics, it's okay to have a little fun along the way. So, we've talked about the video's content, its teaching methods, and even its subtle use of humor. But what I find truly remarkable is how it manages to pack so much depth into such a seemingly simple format.
It's a testament to the power of thoughtful design and creative storytelling. The creators have managed to create a resource that is both educational and entertaining, and that speaks to a universal human experience, the desire to find our place in the world.
It's amazing how a simple conversation about village and city life can spark such profound reflections. It really makes you think about what truly matters to you and how different environments can shape our lives in ways we might not even realize.
It challenges us to look beyond the surface and consider the complex interplay of factors that contribute to our sense of belonging and well being. And it does all of this while teaching English. It's a remarkable achievement.
It's a reminder that learning can be a joyful and enriching experience. And sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected sources. But we're not done yet. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore the broader implications of this video and leave you with some thought provoking questions to ponder.
Okay, so we've explored like
Mm.
the arguments for village versus city life. We've analyzed the video's teaching methods, right?
Right.
And we even touched on the importance of challenging our own biases. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier, the power of perspective. Yeah, it's really amazing how this simple video, right, encourages us to think about our own ideas
Yeah.
about both lifestyles.
Yeah.
Do we like romanticize the peace and quiet of a village without really understanding the challenges that those communities face? Or maybe we just crave the excitement of a city while overlooking the potential for loneliness and isolation. It's all about perspective.
It's like that saying, right? The grass is always greener on the other side. We tend to idealize what we don't have without considering the full picture.
Exactly. And this reminds me of a study I came across that compared self reported happiness levels with actual well being indicators in both rural and urban areas. The results were surprising. People's perceptions of happiness didn't always match up with. Objective measures of well-being. It's a reminder that our subjective experiences are complex, right?
Yeah.
And influenced by so many different factors.
So it's not as simple as saying like village equals happy, city equals stressed. It's about finding the environment that best suits your individual needs and values.
Exactly. And recognizing that there's no like universal solution. What works for one person might not work for another. It's all about finding what makes you feel fulfilled and content.
That's a great takeaway for our listeners. Instead of getting caught up in this village versus city debate, it's about understanding yourself and what truly matters to you. Maybe it's about finding a balance between the two, like incorporating elements of both into your life.
You got it. Maybe the ideal isn't about choosing one or the other, but finding a way to blend the best of both worlds. Imagine like
Yeah.
having access to nature and cultural attractions, a strong sense of community, and opportunities for personal growth, all at the same time.
That sounds pretty ideal to me. And it brings us back to this idea of rural urban linkages, right? It's not about separating ourselves into
Mhm.
village people or city people, but recognizing the interconnectedness of these environments
Mhm.
and finding ways to create a more harmonious and sustainable future for everyone.
Exactly. It's about fostering collaboration and understanding
Hmm.
between different communities and recognizing that we can all learn from each other's experiences and perspectives.
So, dear listener, as you navigate your own life choices, remember that there's no single right answer. Challenge your assumptions, embrace different perspectives, and trust your gut, whether you find yourself drawn to the tranquility of a village or the energy of a city. Create an environment where you can thrive.
Yeah, and if you ever find yourself feeling stuck, remember the lesson we learned from this unusual source. Sometimes the most profound insights can come from the simplest of places. Keep an open mind, embrace the unexpected, and never stop learning.
Well said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.